guest today started with an obsession with knitwear, and the memories evoked by hand-me-downs and beloved jumpers is what led my guest this week to set up her own business. It's taken nearly 20 years from being a student at Oxford studying history through a career in TV as a researcher and producer, a director of a student career information platform, managing the sale of a leading research-based educational organisation, to becoming a speaker and contributor to the How Academy, described as the home of big thinkers. This is a great story of not letting go of that nugget of an idea until the time is right to share with the world. I was so lucky to meet Rachel at the beginning of her journey. Now, 3.5 years on, she is here to share with us some of her insights into creating, manufacturing, and selling knitwear. Staying true to her ethos, managing success as well as the challenges. Discover how Rachel is making good jumpers made better. So welcome again, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
I know, it's been brilliant. It's just so fantastic to have you on today. And before we get down to it, talking about the business side, I just wondered if you could share a little bit more about you and life before you became an entrepreneur.
Gosh, before I became an entrepreneur, well, as you said in your very kind and informative intro, I studied history at university and loved it as a subject. So thought that's what I wanted to do in life. So I went into making history documentaries and I loved it. But what soon became apparent was I really liked the idea of making a product, in this case, a program, and usually on a topic that I loved because it was something historical, and sort of packaging it and then putting it out there and, hopefully entertaining people or informing them. But what I realized was, as much as I really liked that process, I kind of hated the fact that it just sort of disappeared almost. That's what it felt like. Once it had gone out, that was it. All of that hard work kind of sort of forgotten, even though I don't think it is, but that's how I thought at the time. And I think it was just gradually an organic process of realizing, actually, I really like creating things sort of from scratch. But I very much wanted to create something that seemed more long lasting or something that could be a kind of longer journey. And that's where, and granted this happened over a number of years of working in different businesses, and more latterly when I was sort of working in real startups, so sort of more of that COO director role, and realizing that actually building something from nothing into something was what I wanted to do. And then finally age, life just sort of came together and I thought, well, I've got to do it myself now or I'll never do it. So
yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, it's quite interesting you saying that. I mean, this isn't actually a scripted question, but your sort of career has given you, it seems, a lot of great experience before launching into your own business. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think it was, and that was by no sort of clear design, if I'm honest. Neither of my parents had gone to university. I didn't come from a particularly kind of sort of corporate, clear career kind of driven family. But what has been interesting is all the experience I sort of gained from my mum and dad, despite them doing very different things and growing up. My dad had his own business, multiple businesses with multiple successes, it's fair to say. And I grew up we had a wine business, for instance, and I grew up surrounded by wine boxes. And people joke, but this is really true. My bedside table for a number of years was 2 wine crates. It's like stacked on top of one another with a tablecloth and over the top. So I mean, it would drive my mum absolutely mad. Meanwhile, she actually was in the retail sector. She started off as a buyer for the House of Fraser and moved around. But so I sort of had that influence without really realizing it, because I don't think you do. And to be honest, it's not really until my 30s did I actually really start to understand maybe the influence of what they did on me. And I think through doing the different jobs, I kind of did gather lots of skills, which sort of is great and not great, because I sort of changed sector. So I never became a sector specialist, but I became, I suppose, experienced operationally. So I had lots of like gaps in my knowledge, but then I also sort of had enough to know the bare bones of how you create something and sort of get it out the door, so to speak. But I sometimes, everything made sense, every career decision at the time made sense, but I definitely, when I look back and I think, gosh, that was a bit random, I did that, but it's all served me well, hopefully. So.
After all that, I'm sure you're a wine connoisseur as well.
I know, I'd love to say I was, but sadly, the company kind of sort of closed before I really understood what wine was. I know, if only it still existed now.
You had the crates and not the wine.
Yeah, exactly.
So Rachel, so after all that and all that great experience, you decided to launch Navy Grey. Now you say you're inspired by a jumper that your mother brought, but was that it that finally inspired you to jump the corporate ship, or, you know, going into knitwear from that, you know, everything else you've done is quite a diverse thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It was definitely, it was a frustration, actually. My mum has this jumper, she still does, in her wardrobe. It's a really soft kind of wool jumper, and I would borrow it a lot. And it was over the years where I just started to think, I can never find a jumper like that, that was made of wool. Certainly, you know, there's lots of there still is lots of cashmere in the market, etc. But I just kind of hankered after this sort of earthiness of wool, not too itchy. So, because wool has got a bit of a bad rep over the years for just being itchier than cashmere and not remotely soft, which isn't true, because actually the right wool can be really soft. And I couldn't find it. And every year I searched high and low kind of for, and this was almost before internet shopping kind of took off. I was always trying to find this, you know, blooming navy jumper that I just wanted to wear and stop borrowing mums. Couldn't. And then obviously internet shopping allowed me to kind of like probably explore even more. Yeah. And I could never find it. And it was a real slow organic process where I just started to think, if I can't find it, surely there are other people out there like me that would like this kind of item. So it was a frustration, really, that then kind of grew into this, there is definitely a gap in the market for this product. So that sort of, it definitely gave the impetus, years of frustration, years of shopping, and finally, you know, took the plunge to go, well, I'm going to.
I always like to ask people if there was like this light bulb moment, and I think a light bulb moment, doesn't always mean, oh, that's the idea, but that's kind of like that's it, I'm going to do it. Like, I've been thinking about it, you know, what actually makes you go, right, that's it?
It is really interesting, because it was slow, it was building for ages, and I talked to a lot of people about it. I've got this idea, and I think it just became this, it was the more I talked about this idea and how I would really like to start this thing, even though there's lots that I really don't know, but I really believe in this product. The more I talked to people about that, the more people said, oh yeah, I would love a jumper like that. Sort of, and actually, you know, I wasn't doing it at this point, so I don't think people felt that they had to say that. And it was just gradually where I thought, do you know what, enough people have said, you're so right, why can I not find that product? I just thought, well, I've either got to do this idea, or it's going to become embarrassing, because I'm going to become that person that just keeps talking about, I've got this great idea, and I'm going to be 80 and I won't have done it. Yeah. So there also then became the kind of pride factor, where it was like, I've either got to really shut up about it and say, I mapped the market, realized it wasn't there. So I decided to kind of put it to bed and never say anything again about it, or I just actually have to do it. And it was probably after the birth of my first child, you know, I talk about sort of 5 to 6 months off from my other job. And I guess that's where it kind of sort of crystallized. It was sort of like, you know, life is changing, life happens, here I am, new situation. And I just thought, well, if I just don't make the change now, when, you know, maybe sort of young enough, have the energy to sort of do it. If I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? So it became a time factor, I think, as well. You know, I just thought, yes, time is on my side. I'm in my mid-30s then. But I just thought, it was, now or never, I suppose.
Yeah.
So
and I guess you really did want to find or design that navy blue jumper.
I really definitely, I really wanted the product, and I still do. I mean, you know, it's strange, but I live in our products. And my mum, who probably dresses very similarly to me now, or I dress more similar to her, probably the other way around. You know, she's still got that jumper, and she lives in navy grey jumpers. And I just think, we are that customer. And if they weren't in my wardrobe, I actually don't know what I would be wearing. So no, definitely wanted the product and wear the product.
And I have to say, the people that are listening, but the people that are watching, I am not wearing, which I'm about, but I'm actually quite warm, so I'm ready this shirt.
No, it's I know, I completely understand. I had I remember I had a meeting, and I was always felt like I had to wear my jumpers. I mean, I do, and for about approximately 10 months of the year pre-COVID, I could, but when the heat wave comes, and I remember going to this meeting and just being like, I really can't wear this jumper, I'm just too hot. But I just felt compelled that I had to, while sweating profusely.
But I do own some navy grey sweaters, and they are absolutely lovely. So everyone, please make your way there. They are absolutely gorgeous, and you actually got a summer. You've got lighter jumpers now, haven't you, for the summer, which I think is a fab idea, because even in the summer, I don't want to go out without a jumper. And it's just wonderful to just be able to take a jumper with you. They just sit on a dress, over shorts, anything, don't they?
Exactly. And whenever I look back, I mean, a huge amount of my influence, and it's definitely the kind of, this love of history that I have, and family history with that. When I look back at all these old pictures of me on the beach in Devon or Wales or up north where I grew up, right on the coast, it's the height of August, and we're always huddled in a jumper, or if I've got a swimsuit on, I've definitely got a jumper over it. So has my mum, so has my dad. And I just think they are this, they're a comforting uniform year round, and you could never go on we called them holidays back then, but now they are called officially staycations now. But that's all we did on a holiday. And the car would be full of your fleeces and your cagoules and heck of a lot of jumpers. So they're a firm fixture in my wardrobe.
So I'd like to also ask you a little bit about the wool industry. Did you have to do lots of research about that? I'm guessing you did with your background. I mean, not so much in history, but history, I always have kind of linked to having to do a lot of research, but kind of that back history on wool and what the best wool is, and where to get it from, and got the care of it and everything. It's quite fascinating, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Huge amount of research, in fact, because when we started the business, I very much wanted to have a complete sort of line of sight back to the source of origin. So for us, it was about sort of complete traceability from sheep to shop. So at sort of every stage, and be very comfortable with that. And naively, when I first started looking into that, I thought that would be a given, whether you were working with wool. We've worked with different wools from New Zealand and Australia, and also South Africa. And then also, we've kind of been experimenting with British wool. And I thought this line of transparency and traceability would be a given. But even in this country, it isn't. And you're a tiny cog, like as a brand, particularly as a kind of nobody, as I was when you're starting out. So you've got nothing for people to kind of give you that time of day.
No.
And it was a huge eye-opener of different types of wools, traceability, different techniques of how they shear the sheep, which farms look after their animals, which don't. How does it get transported? If it goes into, certain wools, once it's entered China, does it come out? Is it that same wool? It was sort of, it was huge. And I hadn't appreciated how sort of opaque the industry was. And maybe that probably was naivety, but it didn't stop me. It just meant you really had to work incredibly hard, and quite quickly you just could tick off suppliers that were not going to be possible to work with, because either they didn't get what you were trying to do, they thought it was ridiculous to ask for transparency, because this was back, I was beginning my research in 2016, 2017, and then kind of more fully in the product development stage in 2018, with the launch in 2019. And no one was talking or being open really about the kind of whole sustainability movement that I feel really has only taken off in the, at the back end of 2018, early 2019. So yeah, a huge amount of research, lots of kind of dead ends, for want of a better phrase, and frustrations. And definitely at that point, you just think, is it too difficult? Can it be done? And, we have done it. There's definitely, we're constantly making tweaks and changes to our supply chain to adapt, to become ever more sustainable, to work only with certain types of farm. Like it's not a kind of supply chain in the world of fiber, certainly not for us as a brand, where you just say, okay, done, this is how we make our product, just churn it out. It doesn't work like that. It's like, we have to make it better. We have to work with even better farms. We've got to put back into the land. Sustainable isn't enough. Can we work with farms that are regenerative? Like, we have to keep pushing forward, for us as a brand, which is exhausting, hard, time consuming, all those things. But for me, we said we would do it to make them better end to end, and we can kind of never give up on that. So
that, honestly, I mean, I understand some industries, but that when I started, you and I have been talking anyway, and it really kind of sends my head into a spin. I mean, were there times in those early days, Rachel, that you thought this is too much? You said, you talked about having your first child, and you've given up that corporate world to suddenly think, gosh, what am I doing here? This just feels like I always, my comment is like walking in treacle. You just feel like you're not getting anywhere fast.
Yeah, definitely. I felt exactly like that. I was juggling work. My previous employer, because it was a startup business, it'd grown a certain amount. They'd taken funding. It was doing really well. They got the kind of entrepreneurial bug that I had got into my skin. So they were really supportive, and I was able to kind of work part-time whilst also working on this idea, which was a great transition. But it was hard because I'm quite an all or nothing person. So, sort of being 1 foot in, your current job, 3 days a week, and then 2 days on navy grey, I was really struggling with that. So as much as I needed it financially, because bills to pay, etc., it was tricky. And so I then had to kind of make sort of, pull the, I can't think of the phrase, ripcord or whatever it is, I had to kind of go, right, I'm going to have to go, fully into this to really crack it. Because the halfway house sort of approach didn't work. But when you're sat there, really, it's really lonely. I've worked in small businesses and I love being part of a small team, but actually being on your own is very, very different.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say that to you, that must have been very different, because when I talk to entrepreneurs and business owners, but it's a big thing doing it yourself, isn't it? Even if you've been involved in helping other businesses in whatever capacity, the minute you sit there and it's you and everything stops with you, that is like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And finding the kind of one of the hard, which I still haven't actually cracked now, but one of the hardest things I think is that balance between, I've got to make the business operationally effective. So I actually have to be doing the grind at the desk, whether it's, finance, customers, whatever it may be, or the product. But also a big thing is you need to get out again pre-COVID and meet people and speak to your idea and like build that network. And in the early days, I definitely didn't do the network side because I just had to focus on getting a business together. But I know there are a lot of people who are much more effective at being out there and talking and about their business. And whereas for me, it was like I actually had to go and maybe more naturally sort of a bit more internal and actually get the business off the ground, get it working, prove there was something. And then I feel like I can go out, start speaking, getting the feedback. I kind of, but I definitely haven't perfected that by any means. And I think, for me, that's a constant kind of struggle. And then COVID happened and then threw everything up in the air anyway. So
there is, I think the way you did it, I think there's a lot to be said about that, sometimes you really feel you need to consolidate a business as much as you can, I think, to begin with, so that when you do go out and talk about it, you really do feel you own it and know it and it feels real. I think, I've met a lot of people and they talk about it, but you can see that it all still feels a bit transient because they've not really pulled it all together, perhaps exactly what, the offering is going to be and understand the whole process and maybe the branding side. I think there's a lot to be said about, feeling confident about what you've got and what you're doing, so that when you are talking about it, you are equally, you come across as confident, and then people get it, I think, a lot more. So, Rachel, you mentioned the name, the business is called Navy Grey. So why? I love that whole, I'm into a bit of the old branding. I think it's really important. And I know you and I had a discussion a long time ago about this, and when it was in the early stages, which was great. But I just wonder then, Navy Grey, where did that come from?
Yeah, it's really frustrating that I can't remember the exact day, and maybe that's because there isn't one. We kind of all like romanticize it was this moment, but obviously it was a navy jumper, there's no doubt about that. That's where it came from. So the word navy felt really relevant because that's what this quest was about, a navy jumper. But I also knew I didn't just want to call it Navy Jumper, .com, because it just sort of, that didn't, would I buy a jumper from NavyJumper.com? I'd probably check it out because of my obsession with navy jumpers, but it was sort of, I don't know. And then I loved the color grey because it also sort of coincided with, couldn't find a navy jumper, but actually couldn't find just that a really lovely, elegant grey jumper. The two kind of sort of, sat side by side. And if, as boring as it sounds, my wardrobe is very navy greys, blues and white. Sort of it all that's me. And I think it was genuine. I think on a piece of paper, just sort of looking at the words navy and the grey, and just slotting them together. And I just thought, well, what is this business? I don't know. Yes, it starts off with a jumper. Do I have a 10-year plan? Obviously tell an investor that, but I hadn't got a clue, where the business was going. I just thought I had to keep it open enough, because who knows, might last a year, it might last, 100 years, who knows. So to keep it open, put the two colours together. And also I knew I had to have something that people could say, because I find it really frustrating when I don't know how to pronounce the name of a company. And with word of mouth, that's very hard. So actually I felt, put the two words together, it still makes sense to people. And then when I tested it out on a couple of sort of close friends, a lot of people would say navy grey, hey, that's my wardrobe. And I thought, well, that's what it is. So so it was that's how it kind of evolved.
I love it. I always love the story behind the name of a business.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I think you've got to be able to say it. I mean, some people would say, oh, if you've got to think about it and try and pronounce it, do you land up remembering it more? But I think it's got to be easy. It's got to roll off the tongue, and not be too complicated. But no.
Definitely. And I struggle with words. I've got a little bit of kind of dyslexia when I hear words I can't say, and I really struggle breaking them down. Yeah. So, I was like, no, I need to kind of get it right. I need to be able to say it. Because I toyed around with, I think it was a Swedish word at one point, like marine. I was trying to get the marine blue because I grew up by the sea, so that's definitely an influence, and then blue. Yeah. And then I was sort of like stumbling over it the whole time. And I thought, well, no, let's just pare it back. And where is the soul, the core of the business? Yeah. And it kind of, colour was really important to that. So it seemed to sit.
Yeah, fab. What a great story. Now, you've obviously advised businesses, and that's what I do, and mentor people. And I just wondered along the way what kind of support you've had. Did you go searching? I mean, I know you said you talked to a lot of people in the early stages, but did you go searching, and certainly since you've kind of launched, what kind of support have you sort of sought or been given, and has it helped you? Have you found it worthwhile?
I think, there are two ways to group up support. There's the family, friend unit that have your back, warts and all. Hopefully they do anyway. And then you have your kind of more strategic people, business people, who you can certainly be open to, but you might not reveal every single kind of wart and all to them, so it's sort of, and it's changed in the early days, without a doubt. You very much need champions, which, in my case very much was, a mum, a sister, two really good friends, husband, because, and particularly for me, it was like your partner, because as I was getting into this, starting a business, I couldn't underestimate, there was going to be no salary, and there's a risk, there's a financial risk that this could all kind of go wrong. So you need somebody who is, you've got to openly talk to them about that, because, we had to come to arrangement where it's like, we're doing this and we're okay as a unit doing this, because we do have a mortgage and we now have two children. And I think to not underestimate the importance that both of you know what you're letting yourselves in for, or what level of risk you're willing to kind of go with, because if there isn't like it's hard work running a business, timely, and can be costly. So sort of the need for that is great. And, those people that will pick you up no matter what. But the thing is, sometimes you need the kind of hard truths, which is where you actually, need to speak to people who will be more objective and not think everything you do is wonderful or what have you. So, I mean, my mum actually was brilliant, because as much as she's not, remotely an entrepreneur and says her own business, but she worked as a retailer. She worked on the shop floor. She worked as sort of area managers for lots of retail businesses. And I think she knew what sheer graft and hard work it was going to be to kind of set up a business like this. And she kept saying to me, she's ever the realist, ever the pragmatic one. I don't think, do not underestimate this. Will take lots of time. You will get this. Customers will demand this. You will need this. You will need that. It's sort of, and she is 100% right. She did not, she did not sugarcoat anything, which was really, really helpful. Yeah. And it's fascinating, despite the fact she's retired now, her whole career, like she saw every issue that can happen in those kind of businesses. And nothing comes as a surprise when I tell her things that have happened, so it's fascinating. So that's been hugely helpful, to have a great industry insider, because I've worked on the shop floor, yes, in my summer holidays when I was at school and university, that's what I do. But I didn't have, I hadn't carved out a career in that sector. So that was really helpful. Then the real kind of, the other sort of side of it is that objective business help. So sort of a couple of entrepreneurs that I've either worked for or knew of well, so could be pretty open about some of those kind of difficulties. And then actually meeting some key kind of women who are either 1 or 2 years ahead of me, or maybe 1 year behind me in setting their own business. So you kind of can live through the experiences yourself with them. That's been hugely helpful, because, and then it's also speaking to, trying to get access to key people in the industry, senior people, or investors, just to get their take on it. And I think what's really helpful is, you don't have to agree with everything they say, but it's really helpful just to have other opinions. I remember one investor just thought, my profit margin, I mean, I haven't taken investment, but I'm always speaking to people. Oh, you need this for your profit margin, so therefore you need to be outsourcing way out of Europe. You need to meet, this business can make so much more money if your cost per sort of product prices, was much lower, and just think that would sacrifice the business. So, but it's really helpful to know that is where certain people will come from when they look at your business. And that's okay. You need to be okay with that, because everyone can have that opinion, but it's whether you choose to listen to that and act on it or not. And it kind of evolves, and also in terms of what you need, and also your confidence evolves. So I've now got 2 years of trading, obviously one of those was in a pandemic. So for the best part of the year, I haven't really been able to kind of make lots of new contacts, etc. But I feel now when I'm reaching out to people to try and speak to them or what have you, there's just a bit more, I've got more confidence because there's something more solid to kind of go on. And I was definitely really cautious in the early days of not wanting to speak through, I'm not just scared of just sounding like I was, had this idea and it was all just a bit airy fairy, but I think the big thing is when you speak to people to get the most help, you have to almost be quite specific with what you're asking them, and then maybe having specific information about your business, whether it's numbers, whether it's your product, whether it's sort of customers, just some key metrics that just help give experienced people that you might be talking to. Like if I was to come to you, sort of actually want some branding advice rather than sort of go, oh, here's our brand, blah. What do you think? It's almost, okay, this is where I think we are. I think we need help in these 3 key areas or what have you. What do you take on it? And it helps the other person hopefully be as helpful as they can be. But again, that's just learn by doing and realizing when I've not approached, sort of help a meeting or a potential sort of mentor type person in the right way.
I mean, you are totally right. I mean, someone I worked with and setting up their business, and I remember them getting somebody in, and I was horrified because I thought they are so off brand, and what they're saying just really just sounded completely a million miles from where we wanted to be. And I remember having the conversation with them. She said, no, don't worry about it. It's all about information gathering, and we don't have to agree with any of that. But what it is good is exactly what you've said, is to listen to that and think, almost to clarify it for yourself or justify your way of thinking about your business and your brand and where you're kind of want to be. You can think that is totally not where I want to go. And, there's a lot of that as well, I think. You've kind of got to hear it to say, thank you very much. That's just clarified. That is exactly not what I want to do. Or, that's not where I want to take my business. And I remember learning that, and that stuck with me ever since. It's like, no, it's information gathering. To your point, you don't have to agree with it and you don't have to follow it. But I think you've got to be, that goes back to our point, or your point, about knowing your business and the fact that you had kind of really understood your business before you went out there. I think you've got to be quite strong about where you're headed. Otherwise, you can get a lot of information and then you become even more confused. I think, if you are slightly more together with your business, you've got your concept, what your brand stands for, even if you don't know every product or anything, but you've got those, what I call the foundations, then what's a right fit, I think. And then the information to sift out and what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you. So
definitely. Yeah. And I think it is really helpful to be challenged, and sometimes you can be rightly defensive or take it away and feel quite glum if they've sort of told you something, oh well, if you really want to do this is what you need to be doing, and this is success is doubling your revenue every year and it's got to look like this, and you just think, well, oh, and if you're not, then it's a disaster, kind of like, and you will certainly, and I've had those meetings where you just come out and you just kind of want to sort of melt slowly away. Yeah. And you just think, okay, no, this is the way I'm doing it. And actually, there is and I've mentioned before, like there's a level of risk that I'm willing to take, but there's a level of risk that I'm not, because I've seen what happens when businesses, when entrepreneurs and businesses spiral a little bit out of control because your costs have gone too much or you've got too much stock or whatever it may be. I hate that. I like some risk, I like some of that adrenaline, and you've got to definitely take those and work out, but it can't be sort of such a leap that then it's actually you're in danger of sort of losing that business. And I think lots of people can kind of pontificate and just sort of say things, but actually on the ground you've got to do what's completely comfortable with for you. But equally, I've definitely had in the early days when we were just trying to, probably we didn't invest enough in some of that brand identity, and some people said, oh, you look like this or you're this, and you just thought, no, we're not. And I thought, but interesting, you think that, so you've got that from just seeing us. So that's, absolutely fine. But I thought, I need to stop that, because that's not who we are. So then it sort of really forces you to like tighten it and go, I really need to address it, because I don't want us to be perceived as that. So it can be helpful, and it's challenging, and it's really annoying, but and you can get frustrated, and but you learn from it, as they say.
You do. Well, one hopes one does. So you've mentioned the word challenge. So I'd like to ask you, what has been your biggest challenge today, or challenges? I mean, there might be more than one, but
sort of let's open the book now. There are obviously two macro ones which we as a business have no control over, and those two are Brexit and COVID. So I won't dwell too much on COVID, because hopefully we're seeing the light, and businesses are changing, and etc. But last year was a completely crazy year, production, etc. But actually Brexit's more fundamental for us, because we manufacture in Italy and Portugal, and in the UK as well. And as much as we are, we're always European focused, it's created so many challenges, because if we ever import even a sample from Portugal over to here, the paperwork, all of our stock now, which used to just arrive seamlessly from Portugal to here in the UK, now suddenly I have to pay an extra, UK VAT on it, which is, so suddenly my costs in real kind of cash flow terms go up 20% overnight. I will be able to claim that import VAT back, but as a small business, that is, literally overnight. Our invoices in Italy and Portugal have gone up 20 to 25% again overnight, because we now they charge us VAT. So with very little time to plan, and obviously off the back of COVID. So that's been really tricky. It's accelerated some of our move to work in the UK, which we'd always wanted to do. But it was quite hard because of us being small, and now we're a little bit bigger and more well known. It's helpful, obviously, but that comes with more costs. So we've had to really, coming only into year 3, change a few of our sort of supply chain routes, etc., to take into account Brexit, which is tough, but we're small enough and nimble. So I suppose they're the kind of two big macro pieces. But the ongoing ones for my business, which is by no means true of a service business where you don't tend to have upfront costs, my biggest challenge is cash flow. And I cannot tell you how hard that is. It's going to be hard, but when you're in it, it's so much worse than you think it's going to be. Because we have to invest so much in stock and photography up front, before we even start selling, that is really tricky. So while on paper we're in year 2, we have made a profit, tiny, but it's there, we're putting everything back into the business, but actually in cash flow terms it sort of is meaningless. So it's I find that incredibly hard for this business. And my previous businesses where I've been a director of, not the entrepreneur, they've been more service based. You sort of win the business and then you can deliver it, and you can hire people to deliver. This works very differently. And it's that you really see it where most businesses fail, not because they're bad businesses, it's because they run out of cash. And I completely, when you're in it, you just realize just one day you can run out of cash, and that's a juggle. I just and I don't think I'll ever get used to that.
I mean, I totally understand. I think anyone manufacturing anything, and through my mentoring, particularly with the Prince's Trust, I get young people coming to me and they want to start up some sort of manufacturing business. And when I start saying, so you sell that, then what do? You've got to reinvest that. How are you doing that? And I think that's when they, like it is that, how do you manage that whole, not just the process, the manufacturing process, the supply chain, the whole stock, which links to your cash flow and everything else. So
exactly.
I think you'll be one of many out there.
So cash flow. And I think that frustration, managing your own, sort of wonder and frustration, I think because you can only do so much when you're a small team. Like I now do have like a full-time staff member, but I've got lots of freelancers or some part-time people. We're growing, which is great, because once you get people on board, you realize, oh my goodness, they can do that and I don't have to do it. This is incredible. You just get more resource. Exactly. But the stress that comes from being under-resourced is also one of the hardest things. And obviously that can tie in with kind of cash flow as well. But I think, the under-resourced, so that you look at all these brands and, gosh, Instagram is terrible for that, because you almost feel like you've just got this live update of everyone going, we're doing this, we're doing that. And you just think, we're not. And you don't know what resource they've got. And, you're probably comparing yourself to a business that's been going like 20 years and has got, X million kind of revenue, but you can't help it, because if you're ambitious for your own business, you're gonna feel it. But you can't do the stuff they're doing. And I think that's really hard. And I think as a sustainably minded business, sometimes we've hit walls where it's like, we're not ordering a big enough quantity of something. And then I hear, in the press or something, that Stella McCartney is using something that we wanted to use. And it's like, this is so frustrating, because we really wanted to do that, but we just can't order enough in certain quantities. And I know lots of businesses like mine that have that challenge as well. And that's, you just keep plowing away, and hopefully you'll get to be that big one day.
Yes, you will. It's all, I know it is stressful. So look, you're a mother of two. You're running this business. Being a mother and running a business equally as stressful. How do you cope? What's your sort of mechanism to cope with all that stress?
Is there anyone out there who would say, God, I wish there was a silver bullet? I haven't figured it out yet.
Right, okay.
I think it goes like this, up and down, and down. So when I'm having a down moment, I know you'll come out. I know it will be okay. And in 2 days' time, I'll see the light again. So I think it's that. I think and maybe that's age as well. It's just sort of constant context going, okay, this is going to be really stressful for the next couple of days, but it will be okay. I've realized, and again, I think it probably is children, because they force you to, they need to get to bed, they need to be fed, whatever it may be. I can't work 24/7 because I don't have that time. A, I need sleep. B, there are small people. And C, I think, I've set up a business. I want it to do really well, but I don't want to sacrifice everything for that. So I think, I'm actually better when I don't work all the hours. I say that now, and I was up till 1 having to sort some production issue last night. I know. So I definitely don't have it all set by any means, but I think context really helps. Not working all the time. And I think just knowing that, I'm in this for, 30 years. I'm not in this for 3 years, because already we're now into like year 3 of the business.
Yeah.
But actually, I think we're stronger for the fact that we are small and we don't have lots of products. And customers say, I like the fact you're not confusing me with loads of stuff.
I was just going to say exactly the same thing. Yeah, I love that, because I'm not having to scroll. You just think, oh, brilliant, they're all going to be great. That one, I want that colour, and it's that. Oh, done. It's easy,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why I've realised our strength is. And I think when you're small, you've actually got. There's lots of sort of bigger players that envy the small, because you can move at your own pace. We sell on one platform online, Rev on there, but otherwise we're just online at our own website. We're not wholesaling, and that's partly because of the way we're doing pricing, so we want to be fairer, and we are not at the mercy of the people. Yes, we need our customers. Yes, we want the press to write about us. Yes, we want people talking about us, of course, but actually we can set our own timetable. And that's okay. We're not looking at a quick exit within 5 years. So it's not about grow. For me, it's about, can I create, this, with this team of sort of great people that are kind of gradually kind of building, the British, knitwear brand, that is the most traceable, the most sustainable, the most kind of efficient in terms of everything that we're offering, the most like effective and hopefully giving back to, you know, environmentally, and actually giving customers really what they want, can we really, like, it's almost like an art form for us. It's like the product experience, the impact to me is the exciting challenge. Yes, I really need to earn a salary, but it's I like the challenge, the overall challenge of it. So
and I love that. I love the fact that you are building a business with with longevity, on your plan. I think that is so great. I think that shows a passion, and that's going to come through in everything you do, your products and your culture of your business and your brand and everything. And that is so refreshing. It's lovely. And you're right, big businesses look at small businesses like yours and just think, oh, we just want a piece of that. I mean, that a lot of my time is spent in the beauty business. And, that's why beauty brands get gobbled up, because these big corporates want a piece of that. They can't recreate that, but they have to try and buy it in, if you like. And they do it. But I think that is just so lovely. And I think, I'm really hoping that one of the positives, and I think there will be quite a few positives that do come out of the pandemic, we've had to rethink things. And, perhaps that whole thing about people wanting to feel more involved again with independence and smaller businesses, and really care about where their products have come from. And, there's a lot of talk, I think, in the food industry. I think there is a lot more coming into fashion and things. But
definitely.
And I think wool is just something we underestimate. We don't know enough about it out there at the moment. We know cashmere is supposed to be the more expensive, but then you can now go to a supermarket and buy cashmere. It gets a bit jumbled and confused, I think.
Exactly. I think, and actually, I'm very aware, what navy grey I've been able to do through now sort of obviously existing sort of operationally for 2 years is now I've realized we can do so much more, but actually it's about partnering up with organizations that I never knew existed, whereby we're creating a much more sustainable supply chains for wool. We're looking at kind of working with the British wool at the moment, and there's lots we want to do on that front, but then actually also now beginning to explore kind of cashmere, but very much from a what is wrong with the cashmere industry. Why is there's a real lack of transparency in the cashmere industry? It's a lot worse than wool, but it's actually now it's sort of almost like a lot behind the scenes of sort of research and development to be. I want that to do really well as an industry, and it can do so much good, but at the moment there's exploitation all over the place, and I'm really excited by actually being wouldn't necessarily be a core for navy grey, but actually I'm sort of part of conversations, which is like, how do we make fibre full stop as a business, work differently, what can we be doing? And I think for me the sustainable environmental challenge of that at this point of time, given everything that everyone's thinking about, is really exciting. And I think there is this sea change as well with businesses, where it used to very much just be how much money does your what's your turnover, etc. That's it. What's your multiple be if you wanted an exit? It was all money, but you still need to make money. I'm under no
totally.
about that, but it is very much about, well, there has to be other impact. Nature and business can't sit completely separate from one another anymore. We can't have this complete exploitation for profit. It's COVID has hopefully really reinforced that. We're a long way off. Investors still want to make money. We all still need to pay our bills, etc. But I think, there's a time where the business has the potential for lots of good now, and is really interesting. And I think being able to have those conversations without seeming that you're creating business that doesn't want to make money, I think I find the conversations now about business a little bit more interesting.
You're right. It's about social impact and the environment, and I think that adds. You're right. That does add value to the brand. Yes, you're absolutely right. You need to make money, but there is value in everything else that you can put into that brand and business, and giving it a voice and having impact. I mean, I was going to ask you all about what you would do on sustainability, but your passion there, sharing that is fantastic. I wonder, what is your vision? I mean, we've covered quite a lot, but I just wondered, you say you're in it for 30 years. I guess sustainability and transparency and everything you've said is your vision, but is there a little bit more that you could just tell us there, more direct?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we could go in many different directions, and I have this kind of conversation with various people, various kind of team members. Is it an out and out fashion brand? Is it lifestyle brand? And we haven't, unhelpfully, I haven't kind of firmed up what I think we definitely want to be. What I know is we want to create products that we believe have the quality and value that don't exist elsewhere. So it was really interesting. My designer, Jen, and I, we were kind of working on a few things, and when we don't get excited by something, when we start developing it and we think, okay, this could work, and then we work with our sort of knitters and we try and like perfect, and then just something's not working and we're not excited because we feel it's a bit there or somebody's doing it, or so for us it's like it's always going to be a very tight edit of products. What those products are, we're still TBC really. I don't think we're suddenly going to be making jeans, etc., that kind of thing. At the moment we are, we're women's knitwear, but I think certainly always underpinned by this classics made better. So the definition of classics is definitely where we're at. How we define classics is what we're still working on, but very much a kind of a celebration of quality. And I think always underpinned, I kind of feel, speaking to our customers and knowing what I love about navy grey and what our customers seem to love about navy grey, is there is this sort of effortlessness, there is a relaxed, lived in, natural feel to the brand and the products that we're creating. And so for me, it's that feeling. We're not lost in nostalgia, we are very much like looking ahead, but there's a real underpinning of just relaxed, lived in, natural, and being navy grey. For me, that's who we are. What we create from that is, I think, an evolving process.
Yeah. And you know what, that's lovely, and that's so exciting. And I think businesses should evolve. It should be in a way organic, and you should feel really happy about that, rather than being pressurized, thinking we've got to have another new product to get press or another new product to get more customers. And actually you don't. People who are really loyal are going to come back and they're going to recommend. And there's a story when I was working for the beauty business, and it was like, oh, we've got to sell more, we've got to sell. We were only selling 4% of the market in cleansers. And then we sat there and we went, but there's another 96% of the market we don't have. So why are we, that's the bit we've got to be focused on. And put it into that kind of context. There's still lots to do with the fantastic products you've got. Now, I've taken up lots of your time. I could talk to you. I know I could talk to you for hours. Honestly, I love it. But there's one question I like to ask everyone, and it's just, if you could give one piece of advice. I do allow two, of course, but if you get one piece of advice at the moment you could give people maybe starting out on their entrepreneurial journey, what would that be, Rachel?
From experience, everything takes longer and takes up so much of your time. And I underestimated that. So I think, and it's very hard because it's a bit like preparing to have children, like until one literally like pops out and you're dealing, you don't really know how to deal with it. So it sort of is an unhelpful piece of advice that I'm sort of giving, but it's that I didn't really think how much headspace this was going to take up. I mean, I wake up and think about it. I go to bed and think about it. And, I've got two children, but I think, sometimes I think, God, I'm thinking about the business more than them because they seem fine. And it's like Saturday morning, I wake up, there will be something I will do on the business, the same on Sunday. Like it's just there constantly. And as much as I've been in entrepreneurial setups, I worked incredibly hard. When it's your own thing, it just doesn't stop. So I think it's almost, are you okay with that? Like where you do switch off, watch a film, catch up with friends, again, pre-COVID, but I definitely underestimated how exhausting that headspace kind of would be. And I wouldn't have it any other way, because I definitely felt I was done in the previous business. I loved it. It's doing really well. I felt I'd done everything I needed to do there. And I'm really glad I've done this challenge, but it is exhausting. Yeah. So it's being sort of, but again, it's really hard because until you're in it, you just don't know. And the other one is, if you're looking at creating, or you're in the midst of a product business, it is that cash flow kind of side of it. And one of the best things early on, I brought on a really good finance manager to help really do that. Yes, I had my spreadsheet, but when you get the real experts kind of on it, they unpick it. This is what they say. They kind of give you those hard facts. They make sure you pay every VAT bill on time. They'll deal with a change in the pension law, and you just go, what the hell is this? I've got staff, so getting those people so that actually you don't do anything wrong, in the eyes of the taxman, is also very helpful operationally. But also in a product business where cash, I hate the phrase cash is king, but it really, really is. And you can't do anything when you run out of cash. And actually the stress of not knowing, can you afford to do something? You don't want that affecting things. So actually having that expert to really help you and make sure you're okay, or know where you need to rein back spending if you've had a bad month or what have you. So I'd say sort of those two. There's a practical on the ground, get a finance person, make sure your cash flow is okay, but it's very much on a product business. But really think about the headspace.
Very good, thank you. Now I just want to say to everybody, please, you have your own website, don't you? Navy Grey.
Yes, I do. Navygrey.co, which always throws everyone because there's no .com, it's just .co.
.co, that's right. Thank you. And also, where else did you say they can get your products?
We had stocks with really lovely green e-platform. They're called Rêve en Vert, which is French. I'm sorry, my terrible French accent, which is dream in green in French. So Rêve en Vert. So we're stock there, and then direct on our website.
Yes. So I encourage anyone listening or watching, please do go on. They are just superb. They are lovely. And I just wanted to say, when you were talking earlier, actually, there is something about your brand, and I think it's to do with your products and everything, and the way you talk about them. But I know you are a new business, but you don't feel like a new business. When I go on the website, when I talk to you and everything, it feels like you kind of have been there forever, like your mother's navy jumper. That you've managed to recreate that, which I think is fantastic. Well done. I think there is that whole brand has that, comforting. It's been there. I trust it.
Yeah, that's really kind. Thank you. And I think, we have worked really hard to get that feel. And I suppose because we still have this product that is my mum's jumper, exists. I am able to take that to meetings. I can take that to our knitters. I can, people understand what it is we're trying to create, and it comes from a real place. And I think it's Anna Murphy, actually, the fashion director at the Times, because she can articulate things far better than I can, being a very good writer. And I think she wrote a piece on us, and she sort of said, I've got the kind of quote here, the way they make you feel, a sweet spot of softness and edge that takes me right back, bliss. And I think it's this unhealthy obsession about jumpers. And we talk about my mum's jumper, that was the impetus, but my abiding memories of my dad, who passed away many years ago, is these navy V-necks that I thought were the most uncool jumpers ever he would live in. And but I can still, even though they don't exist now, I don't know where they are, but I can still feel that wool. I can still smell what those jumpers kind of were. And I think, you just the profound sort of the way it affects your subconscious, things like that. And I think I am trying to bring that, and so many customers have said this is exactly like one my mum had or my dad had, and it's that's part of our product development, to be that I'm not happy until it feels like one that existed 20 years ago.
Now, can I ask you a favor? Will you come back and do another one? I'd really love you to come back in, say, 6 months time or something, and just tell us how you're getting on.